All right, ready for a deep dive? Today, it's anger and communication.
Ooh, interesting combo.
Right. And we've got some fascinating sources this time. We've got Life Mates, which looks at how to actually have tough conversations without
Without it turning into a...
a disaster. Yeah. And then we've got this list of words, no words, yes, words for arguments. I'm really curious about that one.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be good.
And then to wrap it all up, anger workout #8, which is all about the ways people express their anger. It seems like you're trying to figure out not just how to avoid blowups, but how to actually make those arguments
Productive.
yeah, productive, turn them into something good. So we're here to help you decode all of that.
These sources work really well together, actually. You've got the communication framework from LifeMates, then those practical word tips, and then the psych stuff, the why we get angry, that anger workout.
Yeah, you've got all the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So in Life Mates, they've got this table.
Oh, I know that table.
Right, where they contrast the bad ways to argue with the good ways. And honestly, some of them, it's so relatable.
Oh, it's like they're watching my life.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost funny.
But that's what's so helpful about it. You see yourself in there and you're like, maybe I shouldn't be doing that.
Right. Like, for example, they have the "if you loved me, you would" line. Oh, just hearing that.
Ugh, makes me cringe.
Makes me cringe. Who says that?
It's like emotional blackmail, isn't it? You're not really trying to understand. You're just trying to force them to do what you want.
Right, right. And what's the good alternative? They suggest, using I statements instead of you statements.
Yeah, like saying, I feel let down when. It's just more honest, less accusatory.
It is. It takes the blame away. It's just about your own experience.
Exactly. And then the other person can actually listen instead of getting defensive right away.
So true.
Yeah.
And another contrast I thought was interesting was bringing up old stuff versus just asking for the change you want now.
Ugh, the dredging up the past. Why do we do that? I know, it's guaranteed to make things worse.
And what I find fascinating is it's about power, right? When you do that, you're trying to control them, not solve the actual problem.
So think about an argument you've had recently. Which side were you on? Be honest. I know I've been guilty of some of those bad tactics.
Hey, we all have. It's not about being perfect. It's about noticing it so you can do something different.
So true. And speaking of patterns, LifeMates also gives these guidelines for fair fighting.
Oh, yeah, the guidelines. They seem simple, but
But when you're in it,
out the window they go.
right. The first one is fight by mutual consent, which duh.
It seems obvious.
But you know how often we just dump some big conversation on someone when they're...
Totally stressed already.
Exactly. It's choose your battles and choose your timing. Don't have a relationship crisis when they're trying to get the kids out the door.
Right. Create a safe space. Both people have to be ready.
And then there's stick to the present issue, which, again, but then you're in the argument and suddenly everything from the past 3 years,
It all comes up.
it's all relevant, but it just makes it impossible to actually solve anything.
You get lost in the weeds. Focus on one problem at a time. And if other stuff comes up, write it down, deal with it later.
Oh, that's smart. Okay, but this is the guideline I think is the most important. Don't try to win ever.
Now, that's a tough one.
Because doesn't someone have to be right?
Not really. It's not about being right. It's about finding a solution that works for both of you.
Oh, I see what you mean. If you're just trying to win.
You create a divide.
Mhm.
Someone has to lose, and then they resent you.
It makes sense. You're not really listening then. You're just waiting for your turn to...
To attack.
Yeah. Not what we want in a good relationship. Oh, and LifeMates also says we should respect crying as a valid response, and not just for women.
Yes. All emotions are valid, no matter who's feeling them.
No more man-up stuff.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Everyone should feel safe to express themselves.
So that's communication, but the anger workout goes into something different. Anger styles. I think you'll recognize yourself in some of these.
Oh, I'm sure I will.
Yeah.
Right on me.
Okay, so they say there's 3 main styles. Stuffing, escalating, and directing. Basically, how you react when you're angry. And it's interesting how these connect to, our fight or flight response.
Oh, I see that.
Right, stuffing and escalating are, instinctive, but directing takes more effort.
So stuffing, that's like swallowing your anger, pretending it's not there.
Right, but the anger workout says that can actually be bad for your health.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. It's got to go somewhere.
Like headaches, stomach problems, even.
Anxiety, depression, all that.
And I bet it comes out in other ways too, like being sarcastic or.
Passive aggressive.
Yes. Like a pressure cooker.
And then the opposite, escalating. That's the blowing up, yelling, blaming style.
Like that scene in a movie where someone flips a table.
Oh, yeah. Definitely not productive.
And so bad for your relationship. So we've got holding it in, exploding outwards, that leaves us with.
Directing.
What's that?
That's the healthy one. It's expressing your anger, but in a calm, assertive way.
So how do you actually do that?
You use I statements, clearly and calmly. Like, I feel angry when. And then I would like. You own your feelings, but you don't attack the other person.
That sounds a lot more mature than how I usually do it. But honestly, in the moment, it feels so hard.
It does take practice.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. So think about those three styles: stuffing, escalating, directing. Which one do you know? It's about knowing yourself, right? Once you know how you usually react, you can start to catch yourself and choose a better way to respond. But even when you're trying to do that, you might run into some pushback.
Oh, you mean like when the other person tries to shut down the conversation?
Exactly. The anger workout calls those blocking gambits. They're these tactics people use to, like, derail the conversation.
Oh, like those no-no words we talked about earlier? Life Mates mentions those too.
It's all connected, like saying you never or you always. It just makes the other person feel, yeah. And then they get defensive and nothing gets solved.
But those yes words, they create a different feeling.
Right, like I hear you or help me understand. That creates space for a real dialogue.
It's like opening a window instead of slamming a door.
I like that.
Yeah.
And it goes back to power dynamics, too. Blocking gambits are another way to control the conversation, avoid taking responsibility.
So what are some of those gambits? Like, what should I be watching out for?
Well, we already mentioned laughing it off. That's a big one. Just minimizing the issue.
Oh, yeah, I hate that.
And then there's the put off, where they say they'll talk about it later.
But later never comes.
Exactly. Classic procrastination.
Oh, and guilt. That's a good one. Making you feel bad for even being angry.
Right, like you're not allowed to have feelings.
It's so frustrating. But the anger workout gives some ways to handle these gambits.
It does. Like for the put off, they suggest playing it again. Basically, you acknowledge they need time, but you set a specific time to talk.
Oh, I see. So, like, I get you need to think, but can we talk tomorrow evening? Maybe around 7?
Exactly. You're not letting it drop, but you're giving them space.
And what about guilt? What do you do when they try to make you feel bad?
They call that processing. You acknowledge their feelings, but without taking responsibility for them.
So, like, I hear you're uncomfortable with me being angry, but I need to be honest about how I feel.
Yeah, something like that. You're standing your ground, but not attacking them back.
It's tough, but it feels important. Oh, the anger workout has so many other gambits, too, like reversing, where they blame you.
Oh, I know that one.
And why, where they just hit you with questions and even threats.
It's amazing how creative people can be when they don't want to deal with something.
It's true. But the point is, we don't have to let them control the conversation. We have tools to handle this.
We do. And the more you practice, the easier it gets.
It's kind of empowering, actually. But, sometimes, even with the best communication, the other person just won't change.
That's true. And that's where the anger workout gets really interesting. They have these strategies called learning to live with it and setting self-limits.
Okay, learning to live with it. That sounds like giving up.
It's not about giving up. It's about recognizing what you can control. You can't control them, but you can control your own reactions.
So it's more about, like, managing your expectations, accepting that it might not be perfect.
Exactly. It's about finding your own peace, even if they don't change.
That's a hard one, but I get it. And what about setting self-limits?
That's about boundaries. You decide what you're willing to tolerate, and if they keep crossing the line,
Do walk away.
it's about self-respect. You deserve to be treated well.
It's like saying, I love you, but I love myself too, and I'm not putting up with this.
Exactly. These strategies are for when, even with all the good communication, nothing changes. Sometimes you have to change the situation itself.
We've talked a lot about communicating with others, but the anger workout has the section called Art Experience, Anger Management. I'm curious about that.
Oh, yeah. That's a really cool exercise. It uses art as a way to, like, process your anger.
So, like art therapy.
Kind of. It starts with this prompt.
Yeah.
My anger is like a am. You fill in the blank with an image, a metaphor.
Oh, interesting. So instead of describing it with words,
You express it visually, it taps into a different part of your brain, more creative, intuitive.
and the source is very specific. It has to be an object from nature or man-made, but not a person or animal. Any idea why?
I think it's to help you depersonalize the anger. It's not about who made you mad, it's about the feeling itself.
So like instead of my anger is like a raging bull, it's more like my anger is like a volcano.
Yeah, exactly. It's more about the energy, the essence of the anger.
I like that. And it's not just choosing an image, right? There's more to it.
Right, they have all these questions about the image, like what's its texture, its weight, its temperature.
Whoa, that's getting deep.
It's about really embodying the anger, experiencing it through your senses.
There's even questions about what sound it makes, what it would say if it could talk.
It's giving your anger a voice, but in a safe way.
And then, after you've explored this anger image, you find other images that could be helpful to it.
That's the healing part.
Yeah.
You're finding resources, strategies to manage the anger.
It's like creating a visual map of your anger and the tools you need to deal with it.
Exactly. And it can be really powerful. So we've talked about communication, about different anger styles, even using art to process those feelings.
It's a lot. And you know what else I thought was interesting? In the anger workout, they talk about validating anger, like seeing it as a good thing.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one. It goes against everything we're usually taught.
Right. We're told anger is bad. We should control it.
But what if it's actually healthy?
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Tell me more about this validating anger idea.
Welcome back. We're still deep in this anger conversation, and I'm stuck on that validating anger thing from the anger workout.
Yeah.
It just feels so different from how we usually think about anger.
It is different, right?
Yeah.
We're told to, like, bury it, control it.
Yeah, bottle it up. But this is saying, no, anger's giving you information. It's telling you something's not right.
Like a signal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they do say rage is different. Rage, that could be from trauma. You need help for that.
Right, that's serious stuff.
But for most people, anger, it's normal. It's just we got to listen to it so it doesn't become rage.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you even do that? Like, notice it before it gets out of control?
It's about like paying attention to yourself, your body. It's like, imagine the weather, right?
Mhm.
You see the clouds, the wind picks up, you know a storm's coming.
Oh, I get it. So those are the signs to look for.
Mm-hmm. Tense shoulders, jaw clenched, that kind of thing. It's like, okay, something's brewing here.
But you're not supposed to, like, fight it.
No, not fight it. Just notice it. Say, oh, there's that anger. What's it telling me?
It's like being curious about it instead of scared of it.
Exactly. You become the observer, not swept away by the storm.
You know that poem, Circles, from Life Mates? It's like that, embracing all your emotions.
Oh, it is. It's saying all those feelings, they're part of you, even the ones that feel bad.
It's like that line, over the other side of struggling is wisdom. You gotta go through it to learn from it.
That's it. It's not always easy, but those tough times, they teach you something.
And when you come out the other side, you're stronger.
More understanding, more yourself. So we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have. It's almost overwhelming, but in a good way.
We've challenged some ideas about anger. We've seen how it connects to communication, to vulnerability.
We even talked about art. Who knew you could paint your anger?
But the biggest thing, I think, is realizing anger doesn't have to be bad. It can be a force for good.
For setting boundaries, for speaking up for yourself, for making things better.
That's right. It's about using that energy, but in a healthy way.
So thank you for joining us on this anger journey. We hope you've learned something you can use in your own life.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. Keep exploring, keep learning, keep being you.
And until next time, keep diving deep.